Now you'll be glad that you watched this video because I'm going to save you a lot of grief. We're going to be talking about the 5 cruises that you absolutely will want to avoid, including one type of cruise that really has the potential to leave you very disappointed. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to share with you the types of cruises that have left some people really very disappointed and that they've said they've regretted. So I want to share this with you so that you're aware, and perhaps these might be cruises that you do want to avoid. Now, of course, this list is subjective, and there might be some cruises that you still will want to book, and you'll have your own reasons. So if you disagree with this list, and if you have any additional points to add, well, please leave that in the comments below. I definitely want to hear it. Now, because I always want to share with you at least one really practical tip that you can go with, well, there is one point, I'm going to save it towards the end, that I'd say almost universally you should avoid. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give the video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And of course, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We're getting so close to 20,000, and I thank you. Okay, let's get started. The first one is repositioning cruises. Now, I know some people are going to disagree with me on this, and I do think there are some times when you might enjoy a repositioning cruise, and there definitely are some reasons that you can do so. But in many cases, when people see a repositioning cruise, they are attracted by that really low price. Like, you might see a repositioning cruise sold at $700 or $800 for maybe a 15-night cruise. Now, that seems like a phenomenal deal, so why wouldn't you take it? Well, there are a lot of sea days, and for some people, especially new cruisers, this might be more time at sea than you are bargaining for. At the same time, repositioning cruises tend to have rough seas. So if you are concerned about seasickness, this is not the type of cruise to take. Now, repositioning cruises often have about 4, maybe maximum 5 ports of call, usually 1 at the very beginning and 3 to 4 towards the very end. So that leaves the middle part of the cruise really with just a lot of days at sea. And for some people, this might be a little bit of a boring cruise. Now, if you do have some time in your schedule to add on some travel to the end of your cruise, that can be a great thing to do. But if you're only doing that 15-day or that 14-day repositioning cruise, that might not be the cruise that you want to take, and you might regret it. Number 2, shorter sailings. Now, when I say shorter sailings, I'm talking about those cruises that are 2, 3, and even 4 nights long. And oftentimes people that are maybe cruising for the first time think, I'm going to try a shorter sailing, a shorter cruise, because that's going to give me a good idea of what a cruise is like, and I'll see if I like it. And those are the wrong reasons to take a shorter sailing. Well, there's a few reasons for this, and short cruises really do have some disadvantages. So one of the reasons is that cruise lines typically put out their older cruise ships for those shorter sailings. So they tend to be older, smaller cruise ships, and those cruise ships tend to be not the most upkept or refurbished. Now, you'll also notice that the crowd is very different on a very short sailing versus a standard cruise of maybe 6, 7, 8 nights or longer. So the clientele is going to be so different. You might have just a much more party crowd on a 3 or 4 night sailing. Now, if you want to party, this is not a bad thing. But if you don't really like the noise and the drinking all the time, this probably isn't the crowd that you want to be with on your first cruise. Even if you've cruised before, you probably still want to stay away from those shorter sailings. And the reason for people who've cruised before is that it just isn't enough time to truly enjoy your cruise. When you're on a short cruise, you just don't even have time to really truly unwind and even do all of the different things on the cruise ship. So you're probably better off, if you can, waiting to try to do a longer sailing. Number 3. Now, this one is going to be surprising, if not a little bit controversial, and I know there are some people that are absolutely not going to agree with me. And this is that you should avoid inaugural sailings. Now, of course, inaugural sailings can be amazing. After all, who doesn't want to be one of the very first cruise passengers on the cruise ship? So if that's something that you want to do, definitely go ahead and do it. But there are some reasons that you may not want to. So one of the reasons is that it does happen sometimes that inaugural sailing is actually delayed. So you might book the cruise a year in advance or several months in advance, and you're excited for it, and then you get a cancellation from the cruise line, and basically the cruise line might send you an email and say, so sorry, we have delayed that sailing by a week or by 2 weeks, and you're no longer on that inaugural sailing. Now, even before the pause in cruising, this definitely wasn't unheard of. Now, the other thing that can happen, and hearing feedback from passengers who've been on these inaugural cruises, this has a high likelihood of happening, is you have to remember that on an inaugural sailing, they haven't worked out all of the kinks yet. All of the crew are just getting used to things, and certainly in terms of serving passengers, it really is the first time that they're serving passengers at scale on that specific cruise ship. Now, oftentimes on that very first sailing, there can be some repairs and small things that are still worked on the cruise ship during your sailing. So we've heard from passengers who've been on cruise ships that have said on sea days they're doing repairs and they can smell the welding and different things happening on the cruise ship. And these just might not be the very best experience that you want. So if you do want to get on a very new cruise ship, consider maybe booking a cruise 1 month after the inaugural rather than that very first sailing. Now, if you've sailed on an inaugural cruise before, please let me know. Is it worth it to have the bragging rights, and would you do it again? Number 4, be wary of cruises that are either at the very beginning or the very end of a season. And this is especially true when some destinations are really weather dependent. So a destination, for instance, like Alaska, if you book at the very end of the season, it is known that there can be weather related issues at that time. The seas tend to be rougher. You have more of a chance of having cancellations of any of your excursions. And really there tend to be less excursions offered. So while it can be great because the price can be right, depending on what you really want to do during your cruise and if those experiences on land are really important to you, then you might want to avoid those cruises at the very last week or two of the season. Number 5. Now, if there's any cruise that you want to avoid and even that you should never go on, it is a cruise that is heading into dry dock shortly. Now, a cruise goes into dry dock and it's great because they basically refurbish the entire cruise ship. They make it a lot of times really like new again. They repair anything that needs to be repaired. So this is a good thing. But you can imagine what happens right before dry dock. If the cruise line knows that the cruise ship is going into dry dock soon, they are just not going to be making all of those small repairs that really need to be done, and a cruise ship needs to be upkept all the time. Now, we personally had an experience in the past when a cruise ship was heading into dry dock about 6 weeks later after our cruise. Now, everything was just fine and we knew it, and the price honestly was very good. Because we were aware of it, we were completely fine, but we definitely did see some things on the cruise ship, some chairs that needed to be replaced, that we could see some holes or some tatters. There were a lot of tears in the carpets. The paint needed to be refreshed, even the pool deck. There were really quite a few things. And we had some friends that sailed on that same cruise ship, well, 5 weeks later, so 1 week before dry dock. And they told us really that the crew even wasn't in the best mood. Things were very hectic. The atmosphere wasn't that great. And I think that is just because that cruise ship was heading into dry dock the following week. So from my own experience and really just knowing what happens, I think this is definitely a cruise that you want to avoid. Now, you might be wondering how to find out when a cruise ship is heading into dry dock. So you can actually just ask your travel agent, or when you book your cruise, even directly with the cruise line, you can ask the vacation planner, well, when is the cruise ship heading into dry dock, or when was its last dry dock? Typically, cruise ships head into dry dock about every 2 years. So if you know that the cruise ship was in dry dock 6 months ago or a year ago, it's unlikely that it's going to be in dry dock anytime near your cruise. Now, I'd love to know from you, have you ever been on a cruise that you thought, oh no, this was one I definitely shouldn't go on? Please let me know in the comments below, what cruises should people avoid? And I'm going to leave a video right at the end of this one all about the cabins that you should avoid, the best cruise cabins, the worst cruise cabins, and some unique cabins that you might want to try out as well. Now, if you did like this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. I do appreciate it. And of course, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and help LifeWell Cruise to reach over 20,000 subscribers. Thanks so much for watching, and happy cruising.